Hey Decoders, I'm really happy because this week we're going to unpack my endless frustration around myths of healing. Oh, there are so many myths that drive me batty. So I'm really excited. Hi, I'm Kieran Trace. Welcome to Humans Decoded, a story of hobbits, fairies, elves, dwarfs, gnomes, and humans. If you get lost at any point, there is a deep dive on all the different avatars in episode 1. It includes notes. Thank you for joining us in a fun little chat about the vast potential of our human makeup. Hi Leela, hi Cami.
Hi.
Hi.
It's been ages.
Yes, you've lived like this whole life in the past week.
I know, but in truth, nothing actually happened. It would be so easy to tell the story of, something happened, but for me, it felt like a week of just pure nothing.
Decoders, Cami and Leela went to Portugal last week, and they were visiting beautiful Muji, an amazing non-dual teacher, and his sangha there for a week.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I feel like someone took a cheese grater to me.
So you're the parmigiano.
Yeah, literally like. I think that plus the Kieran classes from last week is just dropping me into the depth of like these dank old wounds. Like when there's slime in the bottom of a basement. That's it feels like the territory I'm traversing. And also just, oh my god, so much silence. When I got back from the airport and walked into my building, and it's, a huge complex, like 300 plus apartments. And I was looking at it and I was like, it's just all made of silence.
Well, ain't that fitting? Because since this week, we're going to decode this very human story called One Day I'll Be Healed, and then everything painful will simply vanish. And then I'll be forever in bliss. I love that versus these deep, dank, old wounds, the slime and mold and that dark growing fungus on the walls of the basement. Feeling like grated cheese even after you're awake.
Yeah, we're spoiling the myth already, just at the top of the episode. Also, like, the answer to healing or how to heal, it's not just sit in silence, period. Like, sometimes that's what's presented by non-dual or spiritual teachers as the answer to everything. Like, it's beautiful pointers also from Muji, but they left us a bit dry because, that was or that is offered as the one solution for everything that might ever arise. And in some way, yes, it's true, but there's a lot more nuance and precision to it. And I think this podcast, this cohort is where you actually get the nitty-gritty details of how to navigate life from a place of authenticity, which is nuanced and precise in a way I'm not seeing it anywhere else. If I may say so. I'm a bit biased, but I think it's the truth.
Yeah, there's a lot more nuance to healing as a pointer, and even more nuance in everyone's own direct walk of it, as you both know so well. I can give you a very precise pointer, but when you go to stand at that spot, you might fall off. So a lot of the mature practice of self-inquiry and awareness is a direct walk. But, I love that you're visiting that beautiful teacher and his sangha. It's such a nice complementary support. Like those beautiful 1,200 people could also benefit to listen to the podcast. So, like, imagine if you were listening to Muji and you listened to the podcast, there'd just be so much you could gain. And also both are free resources. That's an absolutely free way to get the basics down. Okay, loves, healing. What is it? Are we ever going to be healed? Let's bust up some of these crappy myths around healing. You know, I am so frustrated by the contemporary definition of healing. I'm frustrated by therapists, by marriage and family therapists, by psychologists, non-dual teachers who haven't specialized in healing at all, suddenly succumbing to the pressure of their sangha and starting to give pointers around healing. I'm frustrated by specialists in trauma who have not really got any data in the full transformation, so they just propagate more stupid myths. I'm frustrated by the images on movies and TV about these therapists and psychologists and non-dual that just keep perpetuating stupid myths. The worst offenders, though, I'm just going to say it right here, decoders, I'm going to tell you, non-dual teachers who give pointers on trauma without ever having experienced transforming PTSD themselves. But listen, I am frustrated by the modern story of trauma. I feel like where we are in contemporary society and where mainstream voices keep pointing to is just so limited compared to our real human capacity for healing. And by healing, in this podcast, decoders, you know that includes alignment, awakening, authenticity, all these terms that we share here together every single week. These are all under the banner of healing. And, you know, I'm reminded of this beautiful conversation that I saw Oprah have with Nate Barkus. Nate's an interior designer. The three of us are obsessed. We love him. And he was Oprah's interior designer, and they were really good friends. In 2004, there was an enormous tsunami that hit Thailand, and a lot of people died. And one of the people who died was Nate Barkus's partner, his life partner. And many years later, I saw this clip where Oprah asked him, like, how did you survive that loss? Like, will you ever be able to heal from this? He answered it in a way that I think mirrors what we think of as healing today. The gist of his answer was this: I'll never really get over the pain of that. It's always going to be an internal reference point for me. I'm never going to be, let's just say, as free as I was before this marked my life. And yet, time will take the intensity away and I will move on. And that is the cornerstone of my frustration, because embedded in that very mainstream story is an idea that our pain or our suffering, our ordeals, our trauma isn't intelligent, but rather random swipes from the universe. And they hit us, and then a chunk of us is busted up or missing, and that's forever. And then we move on with that broken part. And then we start to discover, oh, we can do fine. We're not the same. There's a shadow on us. And maybe we understand life more. And maybe, you know, we're now waiting and ready for the next hit. But this is a totally inaccurate story of the human capacity for healing.
Gosh, I can relate so much with what Nate said. Like, I'm always going to be damaged goods for the rest of my life. I'm always going to be the chipped cup in my cupboard. I've walked this path so directly. Like, I've been in that position where it felt like I could maybe get over the heartbreak or the devastation of my ex-partner's suicide, but I'm always going to carry this weight around with me. I will never be free of this trauma, of this suffering. And I did not know that it was actually humanly sort of possible to really get free of it and take off that coat, so to speak, the coat of, you know, I am the one who suffered this terrible, terrible fate. And what I hear in what you're saying, Kieran, and I think what I hear also in the contemporary myth of what healing is it's always revolving around me as a person, around the story of me, my identity. So in my life, for instance, it would have been so easy to go through the rest of my life with the identity of, I'm a widow, I'm deeply traumatized, therefore do not expect things from me. I can't. Can't you see my trauma? Can't you see my wound? I'm incapacitated by that. And as long as I believe myself, telling myself that story, I do live in that reality. As in, it is my experience that, in fact, yes, I can't do things. I've had it so hard, I can't. But then, when there's a little bit less identity of the trauma by grace and practice, at some point that identity thins, and then it's like, what's the point? That identity thins, and then it's like, what's the point? Why would I keep telling the story? It seems very unnecessary.
I just love how you break that down, Leela, so much. And yeah, as we mentioned before, me and Leela just spent a week with the beautiful Muji. And when we went to his retreat in Portugal, I saw a lot of my old Sangha friends. And it was a really sweet reunion. And at the same time, it was kind of interesting to be there in this new life I inhabit. It's almost like a new paradigm, I don't know, converging with the old. And some things stuck out in a way that they never had before. One of them was how for the me, the identity, or what we call separate self, for sort of that belief, enlightenment can feel like a goal or a set point that you arrive at and then you're done, happily ever after. Like, thanks for all the work, you're done, finished. You got here and you're fine. It's almost like a fairy tale, like you find the romance and end of story, close the book. Like you find alignment, all good. Actually, in my experience, and I think also for a lot of the people that were at the retreat and were asking Muji questions, I feel like they were also speaking to that a little bit, in the sense that they were sharing that they had this massive insight. Who knows, maybe it was a permanent or abiding type of awakening. But then life turns up the heat and it's not the end, it's actually the beginning. And I remember when I woke up, I had the grace of, being with Kieran, and she was like, this is actually when you really need a coach from this point on. And I could feel as Muji was talking about landing in this insight, or talking about source in that really beautiful way that Muji has of describing it. I mean, it's so like delicious and rich. I could also feel there's like a tiny little part of me wanting to go back to like lock into that story, that there's something to get. Like, look, there is a set point of awakened. Like, it's close, let's go. Like it could be kind of tweaked or interpreted as, this sort of like stationary spot. And so I just think it's so great that, as well as this beautiful Sangha and these amazing teachings and Muji and resource and like all of the awakened masters out there, it's so cool that we also have this podcast, that we also have this resource to have a broader idea of what healing is. That healing includes all of the life inside of it, not just this one spiritual destination, which can often get misperceived as a stationary place. And while we were at the retreat, there was a woman who came up to ask a question, and she was telling a story about something that happened to her in 2020. I don't know if she called it an awakening, but she said there was just like huge insight, huge opening, and then so much bliss, and so much so that people started, coming to her. But then she shared that a year later, she lost everything. The way she was talking about it sounded like maybe not even the insight really stayed. Like it just sounded very, very entangled. And I just had this feeling like, if only she had the right tools, maybe it didn't have to look so dramatic. It didn't have to look like a car crash. And yeah, while we're here, one more thing to share about the retreat. Yeah, as I said at the top of the episode, we just came back a couple of days ago, and it feels like someone's taken a cheese grater to me because I feel so raw. And I think a little bit of it is remembering what it was like when I used to go to these satsangs away in Portugal, and sometimes, whole seasons in India where he'd be teaching. And then, I'd sort of be living with the Sangha and then come back to my own life in the UK and just feel like the ground dropped out from underneath me, because I had no Sangha here, no community in my regular life, no one that could really support this whole unraveling of identity that weeks of sitting in meditation and self-inquiry had done. So I would feel like I'm a completely different person, my identity's falling apart, and like, who do I talk to about this? And nowadays it's so different, because I do have a community, I do have support, and the community was built very intentionally by Kieran. So every time we go to one of Kieran's retreats, there's this very holistic lens that talks about the aftermath of being in a retreat. So she puts you in touch with buddies. Everyone who went on retreat does a mini course online together. There's just so much aftercare and languaging around it. So building more context rather than just being blasted by silence and then like, pack your bags, see you later. Off you go. There's a lot more emphasis on understanding that the silence is going to stir your shit up. And here are some lovely steps for that aftercare. So yeah, that's my 2 pence.
Just one half sentence to add there. It's already built into retreat, the integration. It's not only after retreat, right? However, so Kieran, what is it, the human capacity to heal?
Yes. You know, we've been decoding this for about 100 episodes along the way here, as y'all know, but it just feels so lovely to roll it out very succinctly, very directly. So, we talk about this one infinite field of energy that sources all of creation. And then you might call that infinite field creator, God, source, or anything in between, the goddess, whatever. The vast field of energy is what sources everything in your world. And in fact, it's also the intelligence that shapes our trauma, our suffering, our challenges. So it's not random, but rather karmically important, essential even. Because the very impact blows up belief systems that we've been holding or hiding or running without really noticing, without any real awareness. So the intelligence at play is for us to explode those belief systems and expose how illusionary they were. So that in that movement, there's an opportunity to not only be free of the belief system, but then free of the actual trauma. Because, as you discover, that's what was holding the trauma in play. Weird, right? It's the story we tell ourselves about the harm that does the most harm. And then when we understand how much more deeply what happened, it not only unravels the story we're telling ourselves about what happened, but it actually unravels the whole concept of the blow, the trauma, the hit.
And you know, I do have to ask this question. The play, this process of exploding our belief systems, does it ever end? Is there ever a point where none are left?
We become liberated to the part of the belief system that was holding the trauma. So each of these belief systems is woven like an onion with many, many layers. We each have many of these pain body onions, each with many layers. Let's call them constellations. If you look up in the night sky and you see the Milky Way, it's made of thousands of stars. And each of those stars could be a layer of that belief. If we have an unworthy constellation, there are stars in that system like, I'm a hopeless mess. And another one, God should never allow me in. All these are little star belief systems in that constellation. And our internal world is made of the same infinite source that makes everything. Our internal field is as vast as the constellations in the night sky. The astro field, the night sky, is the same as the quantum field, your internal sky. The astro and the quantum, both, they're mirrors of each other. We are filled internally with these beautiful constellations that have many, many stars. And by beautiful, I mean intelligent. By intelligent, I mean that when you explode one of those stars, it explodes into such wisdom and compassion and love and returns to more infinite source. It's such a gift. It's a jewel. It's a win. And there will come a season of your own maturity and practice where you enjoy, you actually long and reach to explode the stars in those constellations.
I love this image, this analogy so much. It's like it makes things crystal clear in a way, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen it this clearly. It's like pure gold. Thank you, Kieran. And, I know for myself that if there's a constellation of unworthiness or not being good enough in my internal night sky landscape, it sure likes to tell that very common story of, oh, one day I'll be healed, right? I'll have arrived. And then there's no more exploding left. And it's completely missing the point, or it's completely blind to the joy of the quote unquote act itself, the joy of witnessing when a constellation implodes or explodes, and suddenly what felt so true about me and my life, like I really am unworthy of fulfillment, it's not holding me hostage anymore. And then it's like, oh, life feels very different without this cage around me.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so incredibly liberating, as Kieran and Leela are describing, these constellations, seeing how your own unique constellation works, and then exploding the belief system or the star, and then the belief is no longer there. So it's not showing up in your external life, which we call the mirror. And then that's when you start watching your life transform at a pace that was just not even a possibility before. And then that's when something that you used to hit up against incessantly, and you kind of know it's the same thing over and over again, it just has different disguises. Suddenly that obstacle is not there, and then there's an opportunity for you to discover your own capacity. And so, yeah, in this analogy, when the stars start exploding, that's when your life starts to truly transform.
One of the challenges to healing that helps propagate these healing myths is the reticence to let go of our story of trauma. It's like a little program, it's like a little piece of code that's very embedded in our habit to suffer. And if we were to read the code, it would say something like, I have to hold on to this for all of mankind. Or I have to hold on to this for all of womankind. Or I have to hold this to protect the animals. Or I have to hold on to this suffering to protect the children. I have to hold this so this is never going to happen again. And this little piece of code is very subtle. It's an underwriting. And it's very difficult to hear at first, but it sort of wants to keep the suffering cycling through.
Yeah, I notice so well in myself the fear that if there's truly no need to hold on to the story of devastating loss, or the story of I've had something and then it got taken away, or I've lost it, to truly let that dissolve, there's such a fear of, and then I'm going to be this heartbroken again. Like, ouchie. For me, it sounded like if there really is no need to hold the story of my fiance's suicide, how can I be sure it won't happen to me again? Or if I don't hold this, will God know to not throw me another one of those? Like, I've had enough, the story said. And the belief there, the consolation there, is that somehow it's important to keep this story here, to keep this trauma in place, because that is, in its own logic, it says that is going to prevent this heartbreak. I know it's complete bullshit, but it can be so subtle, like just a slight avoidance of intimacy, for instance, just a little bit of turning away from that full connection, be it with another, be it with the moment, be it with God. It just feels so risky to show up all the way, because then the heart might get hurt again. And, to my belief system, to my pain body, this feels very much not okay and definitely not safe. And that's the story it likes to tell. It's not accurate, but it says, I did fully show up and I did let myself be vulnerable, be seen, and then see where that ended. Which is, ultimately, it's just a wound that wants to be seen and loved in the one infinite field. Something that eventually feels very sweet and nourishing, and actually quite similar to the practices we shared in last week's episode about energy healing.
Another challenge that's endlessly frustrating to me in how leaders point out healing processes is how unmentioned and underutilized the human propensity for distraction is. We like distraction. Distraction in our current world comes in so many beautiful, fun, goofy, well-crafted, even artfully illustrated ways. And it can be used for the power of good or the power of harm. And there's not enough signposts or people yelling from the rooftops like our mainstream leaders for how to use it for good, how simple it is to use it for good. There's this righteous and sanctimonious layer to myths of healing about what is good or what is holy, just like what is healed, and what is evil. It's such crap. So good, white colors, mantras, no screens, healing foods. Bad, the color black, rap music, endless screens, junk food. In our community, decoders, we often talk about this delicious yes. Like, if you can come in and hear your body and your being and hear where it feels really alive, which, sure, that's a big practice on its own. It's not easy. It's simple, but it's a fairly mature practice. So really listening to the delicious yes in a mature way. Well, a lot of so-called junk food can be surprisingly healing, and explicit metal music lyrics, same, surprisingly healing. Even just coming into your body is, in a way, a distraction from the on-ramp of your head telling you to go to yoga class, when what you need is a steak and some headphones and some loud metal. So listening for where that alive, effortless, juicy place is a distraction from the pain. And there's not enough people that we have given the mainstream leadership role around healing, yelling from the rooftops, that you can keep going. You can use distraction to support you to keep going.
But then this is not a distraction away from life or away from the moment, right?
Well, we're never really going to get away from life for the moment. Try as you will.
There's that too.
But you're right. Listening to your being is not a distraction that supports the indulgence of pain. It's a distraction that supports the indulgence of healing.
Beware of the hip-hop children. I mean, I love that you're saying that, you know, explicit lyrics, junk food, hip-hop. I mean, for me, it was listening to Peaches, which is like a German punk pop star that swears a lot. That was like tremendously healing. Just like blaring out her lyrics.
Save for another episode will be all of the things we do that are not defined as holy, but were in fact so holy.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some ways, I hear you're laying the groundwork for delicious yes. So yes, we want healing and freedom from our trauma, but we also want life, play, and unique desires, goals, fulfillments, and challenges. We have a whole playground. Like, the earth is vast. The colors and experiences it offers are vast. So it doesn't have to stay in this one lane of, you know, trying to fix my broken self. Like, what if your bones are healed and then you get to do cartwheels?
You know, that's a great example, Cam. When we're talking about physical healing, we often empower leaders to voice from the rooftop that when we have a physical injury, like a broken bone, it can be intelligent, better, and even stronger when it grows back. If you do the full healing, if you go to physio after, if you develop all the muscles in the right pathways, you can end up better than when it broke in the first place. There are signs for this. There are mainstream leaders that educate this. There are documentaries and books and TV shows of athletes showing this, explaining this. And therefore, more of us have an insight and resilience to stay in with a broken arm and go for that win because of that being in the mainstream knowledge base. But we don't have this for our mental health and our mental wellness and healing. We don't have it for chronic disease, for chronic pain. But it's the same rule of thumb. It's the same intelligence. What got broke will grow back stronger, better, more equipped, with more bandwidth. That will therefore let you do those cartwheels, those ski weekends and such. It'll bring you more fulfillment, more aliveness, which ultimately can be so much more of a win.
I feel like this should be shouted from the rooftops. I know people who suffer from PTSD, and the rest of your life doesn't have to be limited or capped at just coping. Guys, there is a map to fully heal, fully transform all the broken connections and pathways. Like, really hear that. There is a map. It's possible. I'm shouting from the rooftops.
Yeah, and all three of us, we're shouting it, having walked the path. And, you've heard about Kieran's walk, mine, Cam's, and probably many of you decoders or people in our community have lived through, what we would call quite severe trauma. And look at the shit we went through and where we're now. I feel like the three of us and many people in our community, we're such good examples of how the trauma in our life isn't preventing us from thriving or from fulfillment. It isn't preventing us from abundance. It's the opposite, I feel. I definitely feel like all the things that quote unquote broke my bones, that quote unquote broke me, ultimately broke patterns that weren't helpful to live this authentic, very fulfilling life. And without going through that, without going through that, working through it and truly healing, there wouldn't be this now, like the Leela here now. And I remember just a few years after Christopher's death, that was the name of my ex-partner, Kieran said, the way you know the trauma is fully healed is when there is so much freedom in you, so much transformation that the trauma is redefined as the most incredible walk to freedom that you would be willing to go in and do it all again. And I remember that moment. It was in your kitchen in your old house, Kieran, when I heard you say that. And I knew, yep, I would truly go through this again. It led me to know God and actual love so directly, which has been a yearning in my being for a few lifetimes. A couple of thousands of years.
I remember this one day. I was standing in the garden. As somebody who was raised through ritual abuse, my internal capacity for safety was very small. I had extreme PTSD and I was plagued by enormous suicidal impulses on the regular. So this one day I'm sitting in the garden and my father, my biological father, who was the main abuser, there were others involved. It was a whole ring of torture. But standing in the garden, an image of his hands came to my mind. And I loved my father's hands. They were big and freckled, and they had this light coppery hair on his fingers. And they had these pinkish wrinkles on the palms and along the fingers. I know that doesn't sound beautiful, and I don't think that they particularly were, but I love them. And simultaneously, I had this thought, how could you possibly love the hands that did those heinous and inconceivably violent things to you? And in that moment in the garden, I witnessed both of those thoughts simultaneously, which is a form of peace. It's quite peaceful to be able to hold two opposite ideas in the same moment. So I was quite peaceful. I wasn't triggered. And therefore an insight was born. And that was that love is so powerful that nothing can break it. Because if love could be broken, the things that those hands did to me were the ultimate test. There's no more horror that could have been done than what had been done to me with those hands. But it didn't break love. My gift, which was the first of millions of gifts, was that love is the strongest force in the universe, which is how I began my first book, Tools for Sanity. It's the foundation of every tool I've ever built, in the recognition of that, which was very direct. It wasn't a pointer. It was such a direct walk. Nobody will know how Hitler-like my biological father was more than me, directly. So nobody can know the force of love up against all of that than me. And so what a gift to understand so deeply like that. That's not just that I won wisdom, or I won an insight, or I won God. It's like I won so much that it undid a story of what hands did to me. And it became a whole new story about love. And there have been many times in my coaching career where I had the privilege to work very directly with other survivors of quite extreme abuse. And I could so confidently look them in the eye and say, if you took the mask off that monster, you would see God looking right through those eyes. And then I could chart this nuanced path for them, cut a very precise path. That's how I built all of my tools. Every one of the tools in my tool case came from this direct insight. And that's how they could start to take the mask off. And winning that, well, I can't even tell you how much love is in that. To be in that position, to support in that way, which is love. To love another like that, which is how life loves us, how God loves us. And that has repaid itself a million times. It was the best investment that there ever was, my extreme trauma.
In Muji speak, I'm just receiving the darshan of that, or the gift. And the proof is in the pudding. And the pudding has a cute face called Kieran, or Leela, or Cami, or you. And what a gift to us all that Kieran walked this trajectory so extremely and so clearly to guide us all home. It's very, very possible. And 10 years in of working with Kieran, you know, I've seen through lots of those stars or layers of the constellations that have exploded. And right now, like I was describing, there is this sort of dank, slimy basement one. And it feels like a squelchy, gooey darkness sitting in my belly. And if it has a voice, it's saying something like, "This is final. This is the dark. And this is the only thing there is. And this is in you. So this is the only thing that ever can be." And having all these tools, this beautiful access to silence, you know, this incredible teacher in Kieran, this amazing community, it kind of feels like I can happily almost like saunter up to it and be like, "Nah, I see you. I can look you in the eye. And I know you're also light. You are also God. It's just a play."
And honestly, there's no freedom that would come close to this freedom, right? The freedom of seeing these ancient constellations in ourselves, and seeing directly that this too is the vast love. And I remember the moment when I could so clearly see that with my ex-partner's suicide. I could see, oh, this is God too. Like the mask came off, and that freedom, it's indescribable. Like, oh wow, like none of this has been the big drama, the big trauma I thought it was, or that I told myself it was. Like ultimately, like at the core of everything, nothing actually ever really happened. Like Cami said, "Nah, you're God too. This is God too." And it's really hard to put this into words. I find it's hard to articulate these insights. So I love how you, Kieran, said it's the best investment ever. Like, yep, I second that. It's so worth it. So I guess like what I'm saying here, or what I'm seeing in this moment, it's like the answer to my fear from earlier, the fear which says we must hold the story in order to prevent this from happening again. Because the true answer is, even if it did happen again, it would be happening inside of the one infinite field, the vast love, being it all. It's so safe. And, you know, then there's absolutely no need for a me, for an identity to, you know, make sure that, or this is on me, I have somehow a job here. It's like, bye, bitches.
Sometimes our constellations and our pain bodies will hear this and think, "Oh, okay, so this is the new thought. Everything's God. Check mark." Without walking your own healing path. It can be picked up by one of these constellations and then generally applied to every constellation thereafter. But it's nuanced, it's unique, and it's such a beautiful walk that we would never want to take away from anyone, because it's so much the greatest lottery you could ever have. Not maybe at the start of your journey or even in the middle, but when you get to the end, if you find the resilience to stay in, if this true story of healing is sung from the rooftops, it would help you to get there. Because the wisdom and the intelligence and the abundance is everywhere to notice. And when you do fully transform, the love begins to mirror all over your world. But it can't be used as a blank check. You start writing for everything. This is the point. Don't get to win an insight or a freedom from just one of the stars in your constellation, and then boom, that's it, you're done. Freedom is so much more. It's so much more inclusive. Healing is so much more inclusive. You're as vast as the night sky with as many stars and constellations, and every one of those constellations is a jewel in your endless treasury.
I don't know where we go from there. I mean, Leela's in tears.
Oh gosh.
I mean, just what an absolute gift to spend this time with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So yeah, decoders, please leave a review. It helps people find us. You know, maybe you know someone that needs to hear this. It lets this episode get shouted from the rooftops, so we're so grateful for your support with that.
Also, check out the blog on the Kieran Trace website. Kieran has so many articles worth shouting from the rooftops. It's kierantrace.com/blog, and then you can type in the search bar healing, and you'll find all these beautiful articles. So thank you so much for listening. We talk to you next week. We love you.
We love you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening. We obviously love hearing what you think. Your feedback helps us make a better show for you to listen to. So feel free to comment, and you can do it at Facebook, which is the Humans Decoded podcast. And if you're not on social, you can always email any questions to us at outreach@kierantrace.com. And thanks for listening. We love you.